Creation Day. So I'm going to talk about something that God deeply cares about. These people are often called minorities. One interesting thing is that thinking about and caring about minorities is part of what makes creation authentic. If we don't care about minorities in our society, we cannot say that creation is authentic. A minority is, as you know, a group of people who are small in number compared to the majority in our society. Sometimes a minority can be people who have less power or less influence in society. Minorities can be based on things like race, age, culture, family, social, financial status. Because they are different from the larger group, they might face unfair treatment, be excluded, or feel overlooked. Actually, the Bible tells us many stories about minorities. For example, in the book of Exodus, the Israelites were a minority living in Egypt. During the Babylonian exile, the Jewish people were taken from their homes and lived in foreign country. They were minorities. In the New Testament, Christians, they were minority too. They were small, persecuted minority. They faced the hardships from both Jewish leaders and the Roman government. Yes, Christian history, Christian story is a history of minorities. Apostles, prophets, all they are minorities. Even Jesus never ignored minorities. For example, in John chapter 4, Jesus meets a Samaritan woman at the well. The Samaritans were, as you know, a minority group in that age because of religious, historical, and ethnic differences. In these examples, the Bible shows that God often works through minority groups. The key point is this: without considering minorities, we cannot make creation authentic. Why? There are three main reasons. The first reason is this: God's grace is for everyone. Second reason is the majority is not always right. Lastly, minorities are often ignored or victimized in our society. First, grace is for all. If God's grace is only for certain people, we might feel it is okay to ignore those who are less important or different from us. But God's grace is for everyone. It includes every person, no matter who they are. Does everyone include tall and short people? Yes. Does it include both rich and poor people? Yes. Does it include politicians and blue-collar laborers? Yes. People of every ethnic background? Yes. People from every country? Yes. Does it include those who go to church every Sunday? Yes. Does it include who never heard about the Bible? Yes. God's grace is available to you no matter your secret sins as well. If this is true for all people, isn't it clear that God's grace also extends to minorities? Now, I'm not saying that minorities are always right, true, and good. In fact, that is often not the case. Today's society sometimes misunderstands this, thinking that minorities' opinions or demands are always correct. But that's not the case. Also, that's not what I'm saying now. What I'm saying is this: without considering minorities, creation cannot be authentic. Why? Because God's grace is for all. God's grace is for everyone. The second reason why we should consider minorities, especially for creation work, is that majority is not always right. Romans chapter 12 verse 2 tells us, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." If we think about the pattern of this world in the modern terms, we could say it is often about following the majority. But God tells us not to rely on the majority too much, because sometimes the majority is wrong. For example, do you know that during the Nazi Germany time and Hitler, not only did most Germans support them, but also most churches supported them? One reason was that majority of 3 million Nazis members continued to pay the church taxes. Also, they remain registered as a church members in both Protestant and Catholic. Many of them believed that what they were doing with the Nazi and Hitler was right and good. However, a small group of Christians, like D2P Bonhoeffer and Confessing Church, understood that these actions were not right, according to God's Spirit and Word. If the majority is always right, then we could ignore the minorities in society. But that's not always the case. In fact, sometimes the minority is the one that sees the truth. Without considering minorities, that's why creation cannot be truly authentic. Throughout history, minorities, people who are different because of their race, skin color, social and financial status, gender, or other reasons, minorities have been treated unfairly, ignored, or made to suffer. We need to acknowledge this fact. In the past, minorities were often mistreated. Practices like slavery, segregation, and colonization kept these groups from having the same rights and opportunities as others. They were controlled, usually for the benefit of more powerful people. Even though these practices have ended, their effects are still felt by many people today. The important thing is that, again, God never intended for minorities, whether due to race, ethnicity, gender, or any other trait, to be marginalized, silenced, have their leaders overlooked. We can see this in the story of creation in Genesis. I'm sure that you already know very well about the story of creation in Genesis, right? Because it is the first chapter of the Bible, right? In day one, God created what? God created light. In day 2, He made the sky. In day 3, God gathered the water to create the seas and dry the land. On day 4, God made the sun to shine during the day, the moon to light during the night, and stars